Void Caller. All right, so Void Caller is it's the Warlock card, right? Put a demon from your hand onto the battlefield. So 3/4
Yep.
4/4 here for a 4 mana cost. What do you guys think, Reynad?
I want to say it's pretty bad, but it's interesting. It comes into play from your hand. People want to live the Doomguard dream, but that's not even as good
Well,
as it
what about the
sounds.
Jiraxxus dream?
Yeah, you get what, a 315, right? That's
Yeah,
how that works.
315.
That's strong. Uh, I don't think it's good enough, but maybe someone will prove me wrong. It's just I'd rather play another card that gets more value as a 4 drop like Dark Iron Dwarf,
Mm-hmm.
and then just play the Doomguard from my hand. 'Cause I'm probably not gonna have that many cards in hand anyway at that point. Um, it's just the stats are really weak, and the effect's not immediate, and the effect is not consistent. So all of those things lead me to think that it's not quite good enough. You'd want to maybe if Dread Infernal becomes good enough to play. There's a lot of 1/1s in the metagame. Then you're playing more big demon guys like that. Then this guy gets good. But to me, it looks a little weak.
Okay, Trump.
This is one of those cards where if you just evaluate it in like the current decks, it does look kind of weak because you have these already established zoo decks. You have your already established you haven't even seen Undertaker yet, but you can already assume it to be pretty good just based off how well Zoo is doing and how many death rattles it's got. But Void Caller, it's not just going to fit into that deck. I think if it's going to be good, it'll spawn a different type of deck, some sort of demon flavored deck,
Mm-hmm.
or perhaps a zoo deck, which is running Void Caller. Like sometimes you have to look at the dream when you're evaluating these cards, and the dream, I believe, is to use your Void Caller to trade into one of your opponent's guys, and then you charge them with a 5/7, which doesn't have a drawback. That is the dream. And I think it's something that could happen enough that it could be good. It's tough to evaluate. Yeah, I don't know whether or not you could actually make a demon themed deck with that aforementioned Dread Inferno. Like, is Sense Demons going to be a card with the Void Caller? Who knows? Maybe. So, and there's some other interesting demons out there too, like Illidan. So,
Yeah, that's true.
perhaps you could see it. Perhaps it'll not. But either way, it is a cool card.
Yeah, you could even build a. I mean, I think everybody's first thought is to build a deck that has a lot of demons when you run a card like this. But what if you only run a single really strong demon or two just to force that to be put on the board? Might could be interesting too. Wailing Souls is next. Battlecry, silence your other minions. Okay, so Wailing Souls. Trump, you wanna go first on this one?
It's a nice anti card for Freeze Mage, pretty much, and it can combo with Ancient Watcher. That is it, and it's good stats. 4 mana, 3/5 with an ability is what you would expect. I think this is a hard counter card to those who would put bad stuff on your minions like Humility and Blizzard.
Okay, Reynad.
Yeah, it's strong if there are a lot of decks playing things like Trump mentioned, humility, freeze effect. Mostly I think it's worse than Spellbreaker though, because usually silencing just one of your own guys is good enough. And a card like Spellbreaker, even though it has worse stats than this, it's just a lot more flexible. A lot of times you want to silence your opponent's stuff. So
Yeah.
I think usually you'd rather play a Spellbreaker, but Wailing Soul is not terrible. And if you play a deck with maybe enough negative death rattles or Ancient Watcher or Freeze Mage is popular, all those things come together, then Wailing Soul would be good. But personally, I think it's printed a little bit too early. There just aren't quite enough cards out that interact with it positively for it to see play.
Mm.
But after the next expansion, something like that, this is a card that could become fantastic. All it needs is one or two more cards that synergize with it.
Yeah. All right, next up, Fugan. And Fugan and Stally they're kind of synergized, right? Fugan in particular, let's see. If Stalag also died this game, then summon Thaddeus, which is Thaddeus is the last card we're going to talk about, which is a huge 11/11. What do you guys think about running a deck that has all three of these guys in it? Reynad?
Is that
Well, the
a
good
card?
news.
Oh, actually, Thaddeus isn't a card.
Sorry.
It's just a guy, right? But Trump, you were gonna say something? The good news? Go
Yeah,
ahead.
the good news is Thaddeus isn't a card.
Yeah.
Because if you had to put a 10 mana 11/11 in your deck, that would pretty much always suck.
Yeah.
So it's good that Thaddeus isn't a card. So when you look at these cards, you have to kind of look at the dream. So I kind of compare this to Karen. Karen's 6 mana 4/5. When it dies, it gets another 6 mana 4/5. Well, it gets a 4/5. When Stalag and Fuegan die, you get an 11/11. This is actually one of my pet favorite cards in the deck because uh, I think it's cool flavorfully, although I think Thaddeus is a little bland. But just this idea of having to combine 2 cards dying and
Mhm.
then getting a nice reward for it is pretty good. Um, is it playable? I think in a heavy control deck, it could be. And I will also mention that Fuegan is probably better than Stalag as an off note, just because of the stats.
Yeah, what the hell? That's much better.
And
Reynad.
I'll also mention that Fuegan's stats aren't too bad. Like 5 mana 4/7, you can play that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Reynad, what do you think?
I agree with Trump. I think it's cool that they're 5 drops because those are before Naxxramas. That was definitely a spot in the curve that was really tough to fill. Now there's a ton of options. I think they're costed aggressively enough that they should be playable. The cards are fine on their own, and there's a big payoff if you do get to pop both. The like one issue is that I think if the second one gets silenced, you don't get the guy. But
Oh,
Thaddeus is kind of a bonus. You're just kind of playing. You're playing like slightly undercosted cards to win those long attrition games. Maybe that ends up being good enough in certain metagames. I don't know. They are just kind of a pile of stats, but I honestly they're not unplayable. I think they'd be fun to try out in like a druid deck or a warrior deck or a priest maybe.
hmm,
That priest would be pretty strong to have a 4/7 for 5. Yeah.
yeah, totally. Okay, well, those are the 3 cards there. Just kind of threw them all up at once so we could all see them. But okay, what we got next here? We've got all right, Lothab's next. Trump, you want to give your opinion on Lothab? Oh,
A lot
actually,
of
no.
players
It should
fail.
be. Actually, sorry. I think well, go ahead and do Lothab. I kind of went out
All
of
right.
sequence there.
A lot of players have held this as like the best card in the format, but I think they weren't looking entirely on how much more minion based this game could become with Naxxramas. I mean, they've kind of seen it this week with the popularization of Zoo. Uh, Needless to say, this is one of the strongest points of Zoo because like the anti-Zoo cards haven't been released yet, but the Egg and the uh, Spider Spawner has been released. And so, say Lotheb were released against a Zoo metagame, it wouldn't even be that exciting. It's 5 mana 5/5, and Zoo doesn't use spells. Obviously, this was aimed against more spell based decks, and it's a very good card against those. It pushes their agenda back 1 turn.
Okay, Reynad.
Yeah, so obviously it's really strong against a deck like Miracle Rogue,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But when we consider it in every other matchup, it feels like Stranglethorn Tiger to me. And I think that if you're going to be seeing Zoo every third game, playing a vanilla 5 mana 5/5 is a little bit awkward. Um, I, I mean, it's fine. It'll see play potentially, but I don't. It's more of like a Harrison Jones type card. I don't think that this is like an auto include in every deck. I don't think it's nearly as strong as people make it out to be. It's fine, but it's not a card that I will play in most of my decks. I'll play it very rarely. One thing that's interesting is from a design standpoint, they they've put cards in this set that have a game design philosophy I didn't think they would do. Like Lotheb negatively impacts your opponent's turn. It stops your opponent from doing stuff, right?
Yeah.
They don't want effects like discard or anything like that in Hearthstone, but Lotheb is it's exactly what it does. It messes with your opponent's options. So I don't really like that as a game design thing. I also don't like that they printed another fairy dragon. Those things tilt me. I have really strong feelings about those cards in card games. I think mechanics like Hexproof and Fairy Dragon's mechanic are bad game design, but because they limit interactivity. But they are symmetrical, so you can't. Yeah, well, whatever. We'll get to that when we get to it. But Lotheb, I think, is playable, but it's Harrison Jones level of playable.
I mean, design-wise, it seems like they're just trying to go for more of a minion style of play, right? More so than, I mean, at least with this particular card too. Like, you can't remove this guy, so you're going to be forced to have to deal with minions or deal with minions, kind of like you said with Fairy Dragon. Overall, I just feel like that's generally the direction they're heading with Naxxramas, Trump, what do you think about this card? And
Yeah, I mean, exactly. It follows their philosophy. I understand what Reynad's saying that uh, cards that mess with your opponent's turn seem to be against Blizzard's philosophy. However, this one in particular is aimed against like very specific decks that players hated. So when Loatheb came on, you saw all these memes coming on how like Blizzard listened to us. Oh my gosh, there's a card, and everyone's really happy about Loatheb. You look at a lot of top players, and I actually think that many of them rated Loatheb as the best card in this set, and
yeah,
there have been some who have even gone on to say like, "Oh my gosh, I'm just gonna put Loatheb in every single one of my decks," and I was like, "Oh no." I agree more with Reynad. Like, it's just I don't even want to call it better than Harrison Jones. It is Harrison Jones like, in that if there are spell heavy decks, then you put them in, and then you play your odds.
mm-hmm.
And I like the philosophy of not just making it more solitary, like you can't do anything to your opponents because they're only playing spells. So Loatheb kind of makes it so that more minions, minion-based play in decks, which is more interactive by default, is encouraged. So that's fine.
Okay. Next up, Sludge Belcher, and bringing this up. Yeah, this is an interesting card too. Taunt in the Death Rattle is also taunts. What do you think about this, Trump?
Let's see, Sludge Belcher.
3/5/1/2.
It's
Yeah.
It's Tazingo, and then you get the added benefit that you get a 1/2 after it dies with for one more mana. I think it's good. It will, like you see Tazingo being run a bit against Miracle Rogue, partly because it's good against the turn before you're about to die to Miracle Rogue, and partly because it's just reasonable against others. Sludge Belcher seems to be like one of those cards which might be really annoying to deal with because you can't deal with the one attack. Oh, you can't deal with one health with just your dagger, and then it's 2 health. So it might slow him down even more. There's all these subtle things which are make Miracle harder to go off, which you don't quite see, but this card is kind of like that. And it's just a reasonable value card. It's priced appropriately.
Yeah. Reynad?
I think it's yeah, I agree with Trump on all that. Reasonable value card, priced appropriately. Much better than Fen Creeper. We'll definitely see this in a lot of decks that are just aiming to slow the game down. It looks really strong. Yeah, I look forward to playing with it.
Yeah, me too. I like it. What show? Okay, Spectral Knight 4/6. Here's your Fairy Dragons, big brother. Spectral Knight. Reynad, thoughts?
Yeah, well, it's symmetrical, right? So neither player can interact with it.
Oh, true. Yeah.
I guess that's better than one player being allowed to put pants on it and the other player not being able to do anything about it. But yeah, I'm in general. The card is playable. It's fine. I think it's too slow for constructed. You'd rather play other 5-drops, but I'm sure in arena it's phenomenal. But from a game design standpoint, I think making cards like this is a mistake. But yeah, it's just a fine card, like average sized animal.
Okay. Trump?
I'm just morally opposed to it.
Morally opposed.
Yeah, it's a fun card. Actually, some of the people think that this card is also one of the best cards, and I think this is kind of a overreaction to just how much people hate Miracle Rogue. This is obviously going to be a big problem for Miracle Rogue to deal with, since the only way that they can deal with it outside of hitting with Azure Drake and Earthen Ring Farseer and SI7. Actually, that's pretty much the only way, and their weapon. So you're just going to have this thing, which is just good against the spell decks. It's similar to Loatheb. And against a minion-based deck, it's not much better, and perhaps worse than the other 4/6 for 5, which is out there, the Spiteful Smith, which isn't very exciting, but it's certainly better against spell-based decks. So
yeah.
Blizzard stated that like they don't want to nerf cards, they want to make cards in expansions which deal with the current metagame, and then I think this is a really good and Loatheb, really good examples of their philosophy. And they're not even like, if you were a new player to Hearthstone, you wouldn't even really see that these were counters to them. Like, they are fine cards on their own. So
Yeah, it's a little
I
subtle way of
appreciate these
doing it.
cards.
Yeah, kind of a subtle way of dealing with, or making it a little bit harder for Miracle Rogue. So I agree with that. Or it's a pretty good way of doing it. Kel'Thuzad, even though Reynad hates those cards. Kel'Thuzad, all right. Let's see. Oh, this card. This card. At the end of your turn, summoning all friendly minions. Okay. So I want to hear. I'm really excited to hear your thoughts on this card. Reynad, it's your turn
It's
first.
props to Blizzard for making so many cards that are hard to evaluate. It'd be fun to play with them and see just how good they are. This guy is definitely not unplayable. It's a recursive effect, and it happens immediately. Like, it's really interesting. It's like an 8 mana value guy, so you have to kind of compare it to Ragnaros. It's more consistent, so I like that. It's huge. It gets to attack. I'm pretty sure it's good. The question is there going to be a deck that can like really take advantage of this? Is the
Yeah.
metagame going to be slow enough to that you can afford to play an 8 mana card in your deck? And Kel'Thuzad is super interesting. I think
Yeah.
it's awesome. It'll definitely see play in something, but yeah, it's tough to say just how much.
Trump.
I share Reynad's views pretty much on this, although I came to the opposite conclusion. So I'm pretty sure it's bad, but it's hard to say. And we're going to have to see if the metagame is slow enough that it'll allow you to play a turn 8 guy, which is requiring, I mean, it doesn't require you to have a guy on the board, but obviously it's a lot better when you have guys on the board already. And when you think about that, like a card like Stormwind Champion is also a card which is big, it costs 1 less mana, has 2 less health, but it's a card where if you have guys on the board, yeah, it's a lot better. But you don't see anyone playing it because it's hard to get guys on the board and then play a 7 mana card. And obviously the effect of Stormwind Champion is not as big as Kel'Thuzad's.
Yeah.
And I think it's important not to have like eyes so big that you look at Kel'Thuzad's ability and be like, oh man, I can never lose. I just keep setting my guys at them and they keep coming back. But like you might not have guys, or they might nuke Kel'Thuzad, or maybe there's hard removal,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, it seems to be. I mean, there's a specific situation or specific type of play style for this, right? Because Kel'Thuzad's not one of those things where it's like you can attack their face and all of a sudden you get benefit from it. You actually have to be in a removal scenario, right, to actually be able to benefit from that. Because I think he will be removed like the next turn by your opponent, no matter what. So I don't know. Maybe some scenarios are shamans with a bunch of totems, and then maybe on turn 10 you can play a flame tongue totem, and then just basically just remove it for free, and then get a full board again with all those totems that you killed on it. But I'm really excited about this card, and getting a chance to see people experimenting with it and what we get from it. Really cool design. I like it. All right, my Exna 2/8 spider. Trump, thoughts?
This card is so the Boulder Fist
Oh,
Ogre
Boulder Fist Ogre.
pretty
That's
much
good.
kills whatever it hits.
Okay.
But when you hit the face with Boulder Fist Ogre, you have 4 more damage, and it comes only at the cost of 1 health.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
when I started my free-to-play Rogue, I was thinking, do I want to run my Exna, or do I want to run Boulder Fist Ogre? And I came to the conclusion that Boulder Fist Ogre was better, but I still put a my Exna in there just for in the initial part because I was like, oh, maybe I'll see what it's like. It actually was not better than Boulder Fist Ogre. On the bright side, it is a beast, so maybe it sees play in Hunter, but I doubt it.
Yeah, Reynad.
Exactly.
What do you think?
Completely
man?
agree with Trump and everything. Yeah, Boulder Fist is the last night on stream. That's the card I compared it to, and people asked me about it. Yeah, exactly what Trump said. It's a bad Boulder Fist Ogre because the attacks to the face just don't deal as much, and 6 damage will kill pretty much anything anyway. When this card was first spoiled, it cost 5 mana, which was very interesting. Because again, that was in that slot of creatures that we didn't have that many good options
Yeah.
for before.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's just not good enough, unfortunately. Not
No,
quite
it would
good
have been
enough.
more interesting in the 5 slot with like a 2/7, and I don't know. Maybe a priest makes it worthy because the text makes it a very defensive kind of card, right? Where you're just killing stuff. You're not really trying to remove it with your damage, and it doesn't even matter what the attack is in some ways. So keeping it alive seems to be the best way to get the most value from it. So outside of that, like even Hunter, like I just don't see it. Even getting a Hellmaster on it, I mean, that's probably your best case scenario, right? And
Yeah, it's not even that good.
yeah, it takes
Again,
10 mana to do that too.
How
Uh,
Master on Snapchat is the same thing. Also
yeah.
kills everything, and
Hmm.
yeah, it's like yeah,
Two less.
Maxna. It people want to play it in Hunter, but you already have two high main. You don't really want more six drops than that. If you did, something like Cairn would be better. Boulder Fist would also be better.
Yeah. Yeah. 5 would have been nice. Just making it even less. Just the stats a little bit less. Okay, well, guys, we just got through all the cards, and definitely great analysis on all the cards. Um, Going to do. We're kind of running out of time, so let's do a few quick questions here, and we'll call it a day. Is anything good here? All right, let me reload this. See what's at the top here. Okay. All right, B Chopper asks, everyone says Zoo will die out with all the cheap value taunts coming out. But Reynad, the grandmother of Zoo, says it will be the strongest deck. What is true? All right, Trump, I'll let you answer first, and then Reynad can, I guess, issue his rebuttal to the question.
All right, Zoo is one of those when an expansion first comes out, like when the game was first released. Zoo was one of those decks where people are like, oh, okay, the Warlock ability is great. You draw a card each turn, and you've got some efficient minions, and you play them. It's almost always like the first default good deck, and even now, it's still held its significance to this date. So, in a similar way, there are a few excellent cards for Zoo in Naxxramas, and there are a few good counter cards, but Zoo is going to be strong, and I think it will continue to hold relevance. There are going to be some decks which are going to be made to defeat Zoo, and I think it's difficult to say without actually testing out the matchup, but I'm sure that it was obvious to anyone who's tested at Blizzard that Zoo is a serious deck, and that you're going to need to get some cards to counter it. We'll see if that works. Um, that's pretty much it, but despite all that, I think Zoo will still be a force to be reckoned with.
Reynad, how big of a force will it be?
So metagames are self-correcting. So even if a deck was just far and away the best deck in a metagame, that doesn't necessarily mean it'll have the highest win percentage of anything. Because if people are used to seeing Zoo every other game, it's really going to warp how they build their non-Zoo decks. I think Zoo will be the strongest deck in a vacuum by far. And the first, right when Wing 4 comes out, that's the major wing for Zoo. That's when it gets its one drops. That's when it gets Echoing Ooze and stuff. Anyway, once Wing 4 comes out, that's when we'll really see just how strong it is. I think Priest will be the initial counter to it because it has Dark Cultist and 28 other cards. But other classes will then revolve around the whole Priest versus Zoo thing. So yeah, we'll see. I hope it'll be more than a two-deck metagame. I definitely think it will be. There's more options. There's lots of new cards to play with. There'll be a lot of cool things being discovered, I think. So
Yeah.
yeah, we'll see. But I think Zoo will be the best deck in a vacuum, and I think that's definitely. I don't think it's debatable, but every time I say that, people still debate it. They're wrong, but they will.
They're wrong. All right, Tantrum Right asked, how strong is Token Druid with the new cards as such as Egg and Haunted Creeper and Poison Seeds? Who wants to take this? Trump, you want to take
Sorry,
it?
what was?
Just how strong is Token Druid now with the cards we've seen this week?
I've been seeing it
Okay,
on ladder.
Oh,
Go ahead.
Trump, go ahead.
most of the decks, including Token Druid, would be running that Creeper or Spider. I was thinking about decks that could take advantage of Egg. I think Token Druid is actually not one of them because you don't have that many ways to activate it. You've got Mark of the Wild, perhaps, which Token Druid doesn't really want to run, but you could just because the Egg's really good. You've got Mark of the what did I say? Mark of the Wild? And then Mark of Nature. Mark of Nature is the one that you almost certainly don't want to run. Mark of the Wild is one that you don't want to run, but could potentially be debatable just because Egg's really good. And then you've got Savage Roar, which you don't really want to run. You use just to activate the Egg, but you could. I don't think there's enough Egg activators, basically. So you've got the Creeper, and it's pretty good for Token Druid, as it is for most decks.
Poison Seed have any impact on Token?
I don't think so.
Reynad, what you think?
I mean, I'll try them. They're probably not good enough, but the Spider's definitely good enough, right? Creeper's good enough. Echoing Ooze will be good enough once it comes out. Uh, Ruby and Egg, I agree with Trump. Is a little takes a little too much work. You got like Power of the Wild, Defender of Argus. That's about it. There's
Yeah.
not very many great options, and you could keep her your own guy, I guess, but that's not great. Um, yeah, I think Token Druid is definitely an interesting deck to take a look at. It's definitely going to be good, and I'm excited to try it out. But I don't think Poison Seeds is the reason it would see success. It's more like Haunted Creeper, giving it a sticky 2-drop that you can actually play and have stay on the board. That would help it more than anything. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Let's see. 2 more questions. Let's see. Actually, okay. So one question for Trump: will you do a new arena ranking for Nax cards? As an avid arena player, I'm interested in which are the best.
Yeah, I will.
Okay, that's an easy question. Maybe that doesn't count. Reynad, any plans on doing another Lord of the Arena tourney? I think it was pretty cool
Absolutely.
back then. Okay.
Yeah, we want to do that in August, ideally. It's just some like production issue. I'm trying to have it not overlap with other tournaments, and
Oh, August is busy too.
yeah, it's like it's tough. It's tough. I want to make it happen. I mean, September at the absolute latest.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. And the last question about a deck. Okay, what does Reynad think about Kalento's Zoo version? It's the same as his, but replaced Shattered Sun Cleric with Void Terrors. I like those
Oh,
Void
it's the
Terrors,
three
man.
three that eats guys on the side.
Yeah.
No, that's not right. You have to keep Shattered Sun. You cut the 2 Elven Archers I was playing, and you play 2 Hellfire. That's the best build. It's a better enabler for Nerubian Egg, and it beats the Mirror and Shaman.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
But Void. That's like a really lazy answer. Void Tear is a cool card. I think he's not wrong to play it. There's certainly going to be less things that like Zu's not very all in on Void Tear. It's definitely a really interesting card.
Hmm.
I'd have to play with it more to see. But I think Hellfire is like really strong in Zoo right now, so that's what I'm playing. But
Yeah,
Void
Hellfire.
Tear,
It brings me back to the days of like the Kiri, like Trump back in the Kiri Warlock days, where you're playing the mirror matchup and you're running like 1 Hellfire or something just to kind of swing it your way. That's kind of cool. All right, well, that's going to be it, guys. Wrap the show. It's a long show today, but we had a lot of cards to go through. It was worth it, I think, just to go through the Nax cards. But Reynad, great to have you on the show again. It's always a pleasure getting a chance to talk cards and metagame with you.
thanks for having me.
You want to do some shout outs? Thank yous? Anything you want to do?
Yeah, shout out to TempoStorm.com because shameless advertising. And my teammates, Reckful was streaming today for like 11 hours. That was awesome to, when he streams once a month, it's cool to see. He still gets a good amount of viewers. He's a
Yeah.
really good player. Um, yeah, we're gonna have a bunch of new videos up for you guys with Nax cards, decks, like cool things for you to try on ladder. And yeah, you can find that on our YouTube or TempoStorm.com or whatever. Shout out to Hyped Guard, Tides, all those guys working hard on stuff. So
Trump, shout outs?
Oh, shout out to my team, TSM. Yay.
Yeah.
the same.
That's it? Not even the sponsors or anything?
And make sure to check out their website, tsm.gg, where you can find all their sponsors, including HyperX, Alienware, and Logitech.
All right, there we go. And I'll just give a shout out to both of you guys for doing the show today. It's always a pleasure doing Value Town with you guys. And thank all the viewers for checking it out, coming and watching. You can find the VODs, youtube.com/ChanManV. Probably, I might not be able to get it up right after the show, guys, because I'm unfiltered in like 30 minutes or 45 minutes. So I'll try to get it to up by tonight, and you can always find all the VODs for Value Town or any of the shows, all the other shows like Pro Corner, Deck Wars, whatever, that you might have missed. Find them there. Follow this channel if you enjoy this show or just anything else, any of the streams or any of that. That's always a great way to get notified. And follow us all on Twitter at ChanManV, at TrumpSC, and at Andre Yanuk. That's going to be it for Value Town, guys, this week. So for Trump, Reynad, and myself, ChanManV, we'll see you next time. Later.